Someone lived in our attic for 6 months. The police found a mattress, a lamp, a stack of books, 3 months of food wrappers, and a hole in the wall, just big enough for a person to watch us through. Someone had been living in our attic for 6 months, while we slept 10 feet below. Let me take you back to March 2019. My wife Sarah and I had just bought our first house. 3 bedrooms, old Victorian, built in 1887. We got it cheap because, quote, it needed some work. We didn't care. We were in love with it. High ceilings, original hardwood floors, a huge attic we planned to renovate into a home office someday. That someday never came, and looking back, I am grateful. Because if we'd gone up there earlier, I don't know what would have happened. The sound started in September, soft, barely there, like the house was settling. Old houses make noise. Everyone told us that. Our realtor said it. Our parents said it. Every single person we mentioned it to said, old houses settle. You'll get used to it. So we got used to it. We named it Harold. As a joke, my wife would say, Harold is moving furniture again, when we heard something shift overhead. We left about Harold. God, I wish we hadn't. November, the sounds changed, no longer random. There was a pattern. Always between 2 am and 4 am, always when we'd been in bed for at least an hour. Like something, or someone, was waiting for us to fall asleep. I told myself it was raccoons, squirrels, something that had gotten in through the roof. I set traps in the attic entrance, every morning, untouched. Then one night I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The attic door, a hatch in the ceiling of our hallway, had a thin layer of dust on it. The dust was disturbed. Something was using that door from the inside. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there running through every rational explanation. Animal, wind, pipes, old wood, but the dust wouldn't leave my mind. At 6 am I called my brother, told him to come over. I didn't want to go up there alone. He arrived at 7, we grabbed flashlights, I pulled down the attic hatch, the letter unfolded, and immediately, a smell hit us. Not rot, not animal, food, cooked food. Someone had been eating up there. We looked at each other, and then I heard it, from above, a single footstep. We called 911 right there on the ladder. 4 officers arrived within 10 minutes. They went up first. I stood at the bottom of the ladder listening. Shuffling, voices, then silence. An officer came back down. He had a strange look on his face. He said, Sir, you need to come see this. I climbed up, and what I saw didn't look like an attic. It looked like a room, a mattress in the corner, made up neatly with a blanket, a battery-powered lamp, a stack of paperback novels, a small cooler, a calendar on the wall, dates circled, our anniversary dinner, circled. The weekend we visited my parents, circled. Every time we'd been away from the house, circled. And then the officer pointed his flashlight at the far wall. A hole, 6 inches wide, looking directly down into our bedroom. They found him 3 days later, 2 miles away. He was 43 years old. He had been homeless for 2 years. He told police he had found an unlocked window on the 2nd floor in early spring. He only meant to stay 1 night, but we never went up there, and he had nowhere else to go. He learned our schedule within weeks. He knew when we left, when we came back, when we fought, when we left. He heard everything. He knew us better than most of our friends. The detective told me he had filled an entire notebook, daily entries, about us, our conversations, our habits, our relationship. He said the man never showed any violent intent. He said it like that was supposed to make me feel better. Here is the part that still keeps me up at night. In that notebook, the detective let me read 1 page. Just one. It was an entry from the previous Christmas. We had been away at my parents' house for 4 days. The entry said, they left again today. House is mine. Decorated the tree while they were gone. Merry Christmas. I went home that night and looked at our Christmas tree. The one Sarah and I had decorated together, or so I thought. There were ornaments on the back, the side facing the wall. Ones I didn't recognize. One Sarah didn't recognize. He had spent Christmas with us. Without us knowing, we threw the tree out that night. We sold the house in February. We still don't have a Christmas tree.
Did you ever feel sorry for him?
I tried to. I really tried, but I can't get that hole in the wall out of my mind. So I'll ask you the same question Reddit asked. Could you ever feel sympathy for someone who did this? Or is some line too far to come back from? Let me know in the comments. And maybe check your attic tonight. A woman knocked on my car window at 2 am. She knocked on my window at 2 am, middle of nowhere, empty highway. I hadn't seen another car in 40 minutes. She looked at me through the glass and said 4 words, "Don't go home tonight." Then she walked back into the dark, and I never saw her again. What I found when I ignored her warning, I will never forget. This happened in October 2021. I was driving back from my brother's place in rural Tennessee. 4-hour drive, late start, bad idea in hindsight. By 1:30 am I was the only car on Highway 70. No towns, no lights, just road and trees. I wasn't tired, I'd had 2 coffees. But I was on autopilot, you know that feeling, just driving, not really thinking, mind completely empty. Then my tire blew out. Perfect. I pulled over onto the shoulder, got out, assessed the damage, changed the tire in the dark. Took about 20 minutes. I got back in the car, turned the key, and then 3 slow knocks on my window. I want to be clear about what I saw, because people always ask. She was a normal-looking woman, mid-50s, gray hair pulled back. She was wearing a blue cardigan, no coat, no bag, just standing there on the shoulder of a highway. At 2 a.m., I cracked the window 2 inches. I said, "Are you okay? Do you need help?" She shook her head. She said, "I am fine. You need to listen to me." I said, "Okay." She leaned closer to the window, and she said it. "Don't go home tonight?" I said, "Excuse me." She said it again. "Don't go home tonight." Her voice was completely calm, not threatening, not scared, like she was telling me the weather. I said, "Why? What is going on?" She just looked at me, stepped back from the car, turned around, and walked into the trees. I sat there for 30 seconds, then I got out and looked. She was gone. No flashlight, no sound, just gone. I sat in that car for a long time, trying to make sense of what just happened. Rational explanations ran through my head. Escaped mental patient, someone playing a prank, woman who was genuinely lost and confused. All of them felt wrong. Because of how calm she was, there was no fear in her eyes, no confusion, just certainty, like she knew something. I called my wife. No answer. Called again. Voicemail. I told myself she was asleep. Of course she was asleep. It was 2 a.m. I called my neighbor Tom. He picked up on the 3rd ring, groggy, confused. I asked him to drive past my house and tell me if everything looked okay. He said, "Man, it is 2 a.m. I said, "Tom, please." Something in my voice must have gotten through. He said, "Give me 10 minutes. 15 minutes passed. I sat on that highway shoulder with the engine running, watching the tree line. My phone rang. "Tom?" I picked up immediately. He was quiet for a second, then he said, "Hey man, where are you right now?" I said, "Still on the highway." "Why? What did you see?" He said, "There are 2 police cars in front of your house, and an ambulance." My blood went cold. I said, "What happened?" He said, "I don't know. They were not letting anyone close. But your front door is open, and there are lights on inside." I said, "Where is my wife?" Silence. Tom said, "I don't see her." I floored it. I got home in 40 minutes, drove 90 the whole way. There were 3 police cars now. Crime scene tape across my front door. A detective stopped me at the end of the driveway. I told him it was my house. He asked me to sit in the back of a patrol car. I asked where my wife was. He said, "Sir, please sit down." I said, "Where is my wife?" He put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "She is okay. She is at the hospital. She is going to be okay." Those words, "She is going to be okay." Not "she is fine," not "nothing happened." Going to be okay. Something had happened, something bad. Here is what the detective told me at approximately 1:45 a.m. While I was changing my tire on Highway 70, a man broke into our house. He had been watching our home for weeks. He knew my car. He knew my schedule. He waited until he saw me leave, then he went in through the back window. My wife heard him downstairs. She locked the bedroom door, called 911. He tried to get through the door for 6 minutes. Police arrived as he was breaking through. They arrested him in our hallway. My wife was physically unharmed. The detective showed me a photo of the man. I didn't recognize him. Then he told me something that made everything worse. He said, "This man has done this before, 3 times. The other women weren't as lucky as your wife." I asked when he had started watching our house. The detective checked his notes. He said, "Based on what we found in his car, at least 6 weeks." I sat with that. 6 weeks. He had been watching us for 6 weeks, and I had no idea. My wife came home from the hospital 2 days later. We stayed at her parents' place for a week. Couldn't bring ourselves to go back. On the 3rd night I told her about the woman on the highway. She went very quiet, then she said, "What did she look like?" I described her. Gray hair, blue cardigan, mid-50s. My wife started crying. I said, What is it?" She went to her phone, pulled up a photo, and showed it to me. She said, "Is this her?" It was a woman, gray hair, blue cardigan, warm eyes. I said, "Yes." "Who is that?" My wife said, "That is my mother." I said, "Okay, so we need to call her." My wife shook her head. She said, "She died in 2014, 7 years before that night on the highway." I have no explanation. I have never had an explanation. I just know that whatever was on that highway saved my wife's life, and I will spend the rest of mine being grateful.